About regular council meeting of Wednesday, January 11th, 2022. I'd like to acknowledge that we are in the traditional territory of the Shuswap Nation. So we have agenda in front of us. I'd like to add a couple of items to new business. So we would do 9.1 AVICC Resolution. This was emailed out to councilors this afternoon. And 9.2, Poverty Reduction Strategy Phase 2 Grant. All right, any other additions or deletions of the agenda? I'd look for a motion to adopt as amended. Moved. Seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you. Number two is receipt of the staff reports. I'd look for a motion to receive all the staff reports. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you.
Aye.
We have a delegation with us tonight. We have Tina Perot, Chief Financial Officer from the Sunshine Coast Regional District, accompanied by Dane McKinley, the CAO, and Remco Rosenboom, GM of Infrastructure Services. And Tina, we are looking to you. SDRD 2022 Budget Round 1 presentation. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm just going to share my screen here with the presentation. Start from the beginning here. All right. So tonight we're going to cover a little overview of the SDRD's budget after round 1 budget deliberations occurred. We're going to provide a little information regarding our utility rates for 2022, provide a little taxation information ahead of the round 2 budget, and provide an opportunity for questions at the end of the presentation. So as far as the budget timeline goes this year, our process began in September 2021 with a community survey. Those survey results were presented at our pre-budget on November the 1st, and we had approximately just under 600 responses. Surveys were available in paper format in some of the public libraries, our recreation centers, as well as online. And they asked various questions depending on where people lived and the types of services that they participated in. So if someone from District of Sechelt participated in the survey, they wouldn't be asked about things like refuse collection in the rural areas. So again, we think we had a good uptake there, and it gave us a little bit more information on how to engage with the community as far as our budgeting process. So December 13th and 14th, we held our round 1 budget information sessions, and as well as our round 1 budget deliberations. And between pre-budget and round 1, we provide preliminary information at our pre-budget. So information on what type of projects are coming forward, things like projects that will be carried forward into the next year, so things that aren't completed. And in round 1, we provide more business case and rationale for some of those items. So as well, we provided some information sessions in November, and we are now concluding some more information sessions. We had 2 last week with our rural areas, focusing on West Howe Sound, Elphinstone, and Roberts Creek, as well as Area A and Half Moon Bay. We also presented to the Sechelt Nation Council on Friday afternoon. We're in a closed in session there. And last night we conducted our presentations to Town of Gibsons, and of course our last presentation here to the District of Sechelt before we start our round 2 deliberations on January the 24th on Monday. Our budget this year is scheduled to be adopted, our budget bylaw, on February the 24th board meeting this year. It's a little bit earlier than we typically do. So what's impacting this year's budget? So as reported at some of the pre-budget as well as round 1, we have approximately 147 projects that are being carried forward into the 2022 budget. Of course, these will be refined as year-end results are finished, but we do anticipate that they'll be very near that amount carried into the next year. We also had about 90 new projects or proposals presented to the committee for consideration. Of those, most of those have been included in the round two figures that are going to be presented here today. So we just have a few items to resolve through the round two. We also have several items in our pre-budget that were considered mandatory. And what that means is that there are things like regulatory requirements. So whether or not Ministry of Environment need us to do certain types of new testing at our landfill sites. They might be things like we have assets that are failing and we need to tend to them immediately, or we might have some safety considerations. Those type of items we embedded into our round one budget, so they were reflected in the figures and they aren't presented for further consideration. That's to also sort of streamline our budget. We kind of looked at statistically in the past, there wasn't much deliberations associated with those items. We also had approximately 16 additional full-time positions to ensure service delivery. So this is to ensure those many projects are executed, as well as we have some positions that are carryover from prior years. And just to explain a little bit more as to what that means, last year and part of COVID, we're having to do additional cleaning, for instance, in our transit system for our buses. And so last year we had approval for almost two staff to do that throughout the year. And so those staff are being asked for again this year as COVID implications continue to happen. So they're not 16 net new over the prior year, but definitely there are some new ones which are associated with new projects such as planning improvements. Our solid waste services is already also needing a project manager to help with the various projects we need there. We also, a lot of our budget proposals this year related to maintenance. So there wasn't a lot of proposals that had to do with a lot of new initiatives. So a lot of things focused on delivering key services and maintaining the existing equipment that we have. So just highlighting some of the 2022 proposed projects, and these really focus on the services that the District of Sechelt participate in. So starting with our landfill, we have, I believe, discussed it here with council and in the public that we have our Sechelt landfill that's scheduled to be closed in the year 2025. Of course, that number is refined each year as our landfill engineers assess the space in that particular landfill. And we have requirements to close through various standards. And so that requires a significant investment at future years or when we have to close that particular landfill. And we're significantly underfunded. In our 2020 financial statements, we're underfunded by almost $5 million for that particular liability. We also have a project that is in one of those carry forwards to do part of the closure, and that's called Stage H or referenced as Stage H, and it's to close part of the active phase. And that particular project is approximately $2.5 million in our budget from the prior year. We also, again, talked a little bit about some of the BC Transit related projects and expenses. We have over $400,000 worth of projects that were presented for the 2022 budget. The good news there is that as part of the COVID restart funding that the provincial and federal government provided to the regional district, that was specifically geared to BC Transit. And a lot of these projects, including the additional staffing required, is being funded through these funds. So that means not passed on to the burden of the taxpayer. We also have approximately $2 million worth of dam upgrades. So these also include the Chapman Lake Dam, but also in our Area A water services. So McNeil and escapes me for the last one, Rick can share that. And we also have great news with our Church Road well. That particular contract was awarded at our January 13th meetings. And so that particular project is getting underway in the next couple of weeks. We also have several recreation upgrades over and above the over $750,000 worth of investments that we're doing. So over $1 million worth of projects going on in recreation this year. And that is something that through COVID, we deferred some of the capital investment there. So we're kind of getting back on track with that particular program. We also, as part of the board's strategic plan, are committing towards the community, a lot of community climate development. And so there are some projects in our recreation facilities to see how we can reduce our greenhouse gas emissions in those particular facilities, as well as developing some plans. So a lot of focus there for this year's budget. So our operating budget this year is currently at about $52 million after our round one budget. This shouldn't grow too much after the final adoption. And the most of our budget is focused on really two key areas there, our recreation and cultural services. So that includes our community recreation facilities, including the Pender Harbor Pool, as well as the grant contributions that we provide our public libraries, our museums, archives, etc., as well as Dakota Ridge. Our water and wastewater, so the SDRD oversees within we have 3 water services, multiple water systems within them, and we also have 15 distinct wastewater facilities that we also oversee. The environmental services includes our solid waste services. So those are things like our transfer stations up in Pender Harbor, the landfill in Seashell, as well as the resource recovery facilities. So we have our transportation services. So that includes our ports as well as our transit services, and protective services include things like emergency planning and our fire departments. So the capital budget for this year is budgeted just under $42 million. And so this particular amount may change after round 2 with our final budget. These include many of those carry forward projects. So this is not new investment. And as you can see, the majority of this is within our water and wastewater services. So again, recreation and culture, we've identified significant investments there as well. So we can see that we have a lot of capital projects going on here at the regional district. So another item impacting this year's budget, of course, a lot of information in the news of late regarding the property assessments. And so the Sunshine Coast definitely saw a significant increase along with many of the rural communities as a result of urban people coming to more rural communities. And so Sunshine Coast has not been immune to that change. So some properties on the Sunshine Coast saw as high as a 46% increase in their property valuation. A lot of this we saw was mostly up in the Area A segment. And so in the District of Seashell, I think the average was approximately 34%. So as our taxes are based on mostly on assessed home values, because the majority of our assessment are for the residential class here on the Sunshine Coast. So as far as what does this mean, as far as the overall assessments in the region, this includes all the Sunshine Coast, so includes the District of Seashell in these figures. So as far as the increase due to non-market change, so that's that MNC, that's generally related to growth. So that means new units or new development in the community. So that was just under 1.5%. So that is about very similar to, I think we saw a little bit more last year. The increase due to market is really what people could sell their properties for in 2021 versus in 2022. And the average for the whole Sunshine Coast was just under 33%. So the total overall assessment change is 34.27% over the prior year. So we want to thank the District of Seashell for finance staff, Dave Douglas and his team there, to provide a tax notice example. And really this is really to articulate what component of the District of Seashell taxation bill reflects those items within the regional district and part of this presentation here. So as we can see here, we used an example of a $750,000 home. And of course, we know that this is probably getting close to the average here on the Sunshine Coast. So as you can see, there are things that we talk about in taxation. So, and then we also have several other types of levies as far as community recreation parcel tax and our water parcel taxes and user fees as well as is charged out separately to property owners. So our water user rates this year were approved in December the 9th at our board meeting, and that information was presented at our November Infrastructure Services Committee. So for 2022, we're estimating approximately $526 user rate, and it really depends what type of user that you are. So this is mostly the residential user rate. And so that's about a $58 difference from the prior year. Our water parcel tax, and that is just a little under, or $14.54 different from the prior year, so just a little over $300. So our water user rates pay the operations of the water service, and the parcel tax is to pay for capital investment. So for recreation, we're still, of course, calculating what the recreation parcel tax is going to be, but we do estimate it'll be very near last year, a little less. So last year was about $16.80, and it's about $116.30 this year. So again, taking that example as far as what the District of Sechelt portion of the SDRD taxes are going to be, is we provided little information here as far as what the 2021 SDRD rate was per $100,000 of assessment of your property. So for 2021, the rate was approximately $169.76. We added a column here where it says 2022 assessment increase. And what that number reflects, that 140.37, reflects what the tax rate would be if the SDRD did not requisition any more to the District of Sechelt. So say we had to requisition $2 million from the District of Sechelt, the rate would naturally decrease because there is additional assessment built into there. So that's that increase that we saw, about 34% overall. So after our round one budget deliberations, though, our 2022 preliminary SDRD tax rate to the District of Sechelt is approximately $146.31. So the difference over the prior year is approximately $23.45. So someone could take that rate and multiply it for their SDRD portion of their tax bill, and could see different examples here depending on the value of their home, anywhere from $500 to $1 million. So the total can range from just under $1,700 all the way up to $2,400, depending on your property value. So where did District of Sechelt tax dollars go? Mostly going to the recreation and cultural services. So again, that's for the community recreation facilities. The District of Sechelt, and through a memorandum of understanding, we pay directly to the Sechelt Library, that doesn't flow through the SDRD. Our water parcel tax, and it goes through here too, and that makes a majority of what the tax dollars go towards. And again, I just want to highlight various other services listed here, and this was highlighted at the town of Gibson's yesterday. So it's important to mention that our health services here at the regional district is our cemetery. We do have the regional hospital district, however, that isn't what this reflects here. Again, we've just touched on transportation services, and of course, protective services is not the fire department's components of the SDRD, but is the emergency planning, something like 911 towers, etc. So what's next? So we're concluding our information sessions to the public. Today is our last session. Our round two budget deliberations. Again, this meeting is open to the public and open for questions if community members want to attend and ask at that meeting on January the 24th, which starts at 9:30 in the morning. And we are scheduled for our bylaw adoption on February the 24th. So we have a lot more information. We just released our next iteration of our budget book that provides a lot of detailed information regarding assessments in the community, detailed tax rates on various services, what our tax requisitions are looking like as we head into our round two budget, and that's included on our website there. So that concludes my presentation. I'm going to stop sharing and we'll take any questions if there are any. Thank you.
Let's go to council. Any questions from councillors? Right, Councillor McLean.
Yeah, I'm just attempting to do the math. Let's try that again. Okay. I'm attempting to do the math on the taxation based on a representative home, because obviously we did see large increases, and I didn't quite get that from the slide which showed the tax increases. It doesn't account for the change in assessments. So what we typically do in the District of Sechelt is use a typical home. So I'm just wondering if you have that handy of what the change would be.
Is the question, what would the change be in the tax rate from the prior year? We didn't compare both, but I think what we did is we did compare the tax rate. So based on, I'm just going to go to my slide on my screen here. Essentially, the preliminary difference would be about $23, but I think that's very relative depending on your home. So if you saw a 30% increase in your home, essentially the tax rate has decreased slightly. And so it really is quite variable. What we notice with tax rates throughout the region is it really depends on how much your home increased over the average. So if your property increased more than the average, your taxation will go up more relative. If yours decreased below the average, then you'll actually potentially see a decrease in your taxation rate. Overall, though, we are requisitioning more to the District of Sechelt. It's just that relative tax rate decreases. So I think the question, I would direct it more to District of Sechelt staff as far as how that interrelates and how much the District of Sechelt or the SDRD's portion of the District of Sechelt tax rate. I think that's also built into some of that with the municipal. So that is something that isn't quite built in. We just focus on sort of the SDRD side of it.
You're referring to the fact that because somebody's assessment went up, even though this is showing a reduction, their taxes may go up as well because of that increase in assessment. That was
right.
What you're getting at, right?
Yeah. So if your house was worth $500,000 and it increased by 30%, essentially that's what you would do. You take the new tax rate and multiply it by your new assessed value. And then you could then calculate what your old assessment was, time the new rate, and subtract it. And that's what your difference would be. We didn't do the reverse math, if that's what you're asking. I could do it on the fly, but I don't know if that's what we want to do right now.
Question, please unmute yourself. Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Lamb.
Okay. Hey, I'm just with the, obviously there's a huge percentage of the tax goes to recreation. And I'm just wondering, have you ever looked into, how many people use some of these facilities and are, is the money well spent on some of these, some of the different opportunities that you offer the community? It just, I don't know. I just see, anyways, I'm just wondering if you looked at that, and is there some way of getting a better return, for the money that's spent there on? Anyway, thank you.
I can start. Our general manager of community services is not with us tonight, but what I can definitely say is through COVID, one of the most significantly impacted services has been our community recreation facilities. So with every provincial health orders, that means things like our gyms weren't able to be opened. We had to limit certain type of gym hours. Our facilities had to be closed for an extended period of time. So from basically March 17th of 2020 all the way up to, I believe it was July or August when they reopened of 2020. So we do take statistics as far as the programming and whatnot, but definitely they have been quite significantly hit hard. Of course, we've just had new provincial health orders again, just I think yesterday. So we can open our gyms again on January the 20th. So we have to pivot and do that. So yes, we do take statistics. We do a lot of work on some of the programming, and definitely with the onslaught of having our new GM of Community Services, who's an expert in the field of recreation. Most certainly, these are things that they're looking at and opportunities that they can do as they go forward. So I think there's going to be more to come as she delves into her work and looks at other opportunities for our recreation facilities.
Did you have a follow-up? All right, seeing no further questions from council at this point, are there any of the attendees in the meeting who would like to speak, or from our audience here in the room? Any questions? No questions there. What about the attendees? I think the majority of them are SDRD staff or directors, so all right. All right, come up to the mic. Yeah, come up to the mic, please. Okay, we have a question in the gallery here.
When you're talking about when you're talking about homes as opposed to properties and the taxes, when you say homes, does that mean the house and property, or houses are separate from property? That's all. I just wasn't quite clear when she was talking.
I think we're talking about houses and property, and it's only for recreation where we only tax
the
on
part
the
in there where
increase.
it's got the diagrams of the little houses.
Yes.
So it's separate from the property?
No.
Oh, okay. That's all I wanted to know.
No.
For sure. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, any other questions? All right, seeing no further questions, thank you for being here. Thank you for the presentation, and we look forward to working with you more next week.
All right, thank you. Sorry,
Thank you.
Mayor, I just wanted to reply to Councillor McLean. I think there is, on one of the slides, there is a difference between the rates there. I think it's $117 is the difference between last year's rate to this year's rate. So I don't know if that answers this question.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay,
All
thank you.
Thank you.
All right, bye now.
Bye-bye. All right, we have no proclamations. We're going to move on to item number 5. Now, I removed my mask because I've been told that it's hard to hear me through the mask, so taking my mask off for this. So we have adoption of the minutes of the council meeting of December 15th. First, any errors or omissions in those minutes? Seeing none, I'd look for a motion to adopt. Moved and seconded, all in favor? Thank you. Any business arising from the minutes? Seeing no business arising from the minutes, we'll move on to receipt of committee and commission reports. Item number 7.1, page 36 through 40. This is the minutes of the committee of the whole meeting of Wednesday, December 22nd. First, any errors or omissions in the minutes? Seeing no errors, I'd look for a motion for, we've already received, no, we haven't. We will need receipt and endorsement. Moved and seconded, all in favor? Thank you. Item 7.2, this is minutes of the Advisory Planning Commission meeting, and this is for receipt. Look for a motion to receive. Yep, Councillor Toth.
Thank you. I just wanted to make a comment on the APC comments about the Public Works building. They talk about, you know, needing to do more, do better in terms of the sustainability features. And I don't disagree with their assessments. Unfortunately, you know, sustainability features on a project like this they're a nice to have, but we're not really able to afford the nice to haves on this project. I'm all in favor of, you know, pre-conduiting for solar, or, you know, ensuring that the building is prepared for water reuse, things like that. Small incremental items. You know, we're going to have other options in the future if grant funding or funding opportunities allow for it. Just not something I'm in favor of moving forward with on this project at this time.
Thank you. I'll make a comment on that as well. I think we a number of times went back to staff and to the designers to cut back and reduce the cost. And I think we reduced it quite a bit, and still we had the community there were a portion of the community not in support of us actually building that and spending that. So yes, it would have been nice to have all of those extras, and I don't know if the community would have supported the cost. Any other questions or comments about the minutes? If not, I'd look for a motion to receive the Advisory Planning Commission minutes of January 4th. Moved and seconded, all in favor? Thank you. Moving to item 8.1A, and I'll turn this over to our Chief Building Official, Mr. Nias.
Thank you, Mayor. If I may, could I share a short PowerPoint presentation with you and Council just to describe the changes in a bit more detail?
Please do.
There we go. So letters of assurance are required by the BC Building Code where a registered professional has submitted a structural, architectural, mechanical, or geotechnical design for a building. For many years, municipalities have required letters of assurance for retaining walls as a convenient method of dealing with the design, much the same as a building. There are other enactments and geotechnical guidelines that also should be considered in the provisions of the building bylaw, such as those of the Professional Governance Act, formerly the Engineers and Geoscientists Act, and the Architects Act. In February of 2020, Engineers and Geoscientists of BC published their professional practice guidelines for retaining walls that required engineers responsible for design to undertake the field reviews of the construction and provide a retaining wall assurance statement for retaining walls upon completion. The Guide to Letters of Assurance that was published in October of 2021 directed that an engineer should only provide letters of assurance for a building as per the 2018 Building Code, Division C, Part 2, and not for anything else except for retaining walls where a building's construction relies on those. And here we have an example of a building relying on just such a retaining wall. Letters of assurance would be required for the retaining wall and the building. And here we have an example of retaining walls that would require a building permit that do not support the construction of a building. No letters of assurance would be required, but a retaining wall assurance statement is. In the interest of providing the best quality customer service to the District of Sechelt, Planning and Development strives to ensure that the building bylaw is up to date and reflects not only the requirements of the Building Act and the Building Code, but all applicable enactments without confusion or conflict. Thank you.
Thank you. So council, questions? Councillor Lamb.
So will every retaining wall then now built need a building permit?
Our building bylaw requires where retaining walls are over 1.2 meters in height, or there's a series of retaining walls where their cumulative height is greater than 1.2 meters, does require a building permit. The difference here is that we had formally required in the building bylaw letters of assurance, but that was in conflict with the direction of the guide to letters of assurance from AVICC, and rightly so. Letters of assurance are intended for building and the systems that support them.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Toth.
I will move recommendation 2 that council give first, second, and third reading to Building Amendment Bylaw 409-10/2022.
Is there a seconder for the recommendation? Seconded. All those in favor? Thank you. We'll move on to the actual bylaw. This is 8.1B, starts on page 47. So the District of Sechelt Building Amendment Bylaw number 409-10/2022, a bylaw to amend Building Bylaw number 409/2003. I'd look for someone to move first reading. Moved. Seconded. All in favor? Thank you. And I'd look for second reading. District of Sechelt Building Amendment Bylaw number 409-10/2022, a bylaw to amend Building Bylaw number 409/2003. Someone move second. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you. And District of Sechelt Building Bylaw number 409-10/2022, a bylaw to amend Building Bylaw number 409/2003, and someone move third reading. Moved, seconded, all in favor? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Nagas. Moving on to item 8.2A. This is 2021 to 2025 Consolidated Financial Plan Amendment Bylaw number 595-1/2022. Mr. Douglas, over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Throughout 2021, after the budget had been approved for 2021, several motions were made at council that had financial implications. And I've included a summary of the motions. There's almost 3 pages of motions there. And that resulted in a increase to the operating costs of $309,000 and new capital to the just over $1.68 million. And so things that were included here are like grants that we applied for after the budget process, or we plan to spend some of the COVID relief money that after the fact, after the budget was processed. So these are the things that we're building into the budget. And it's when you pass your 5-year financial plan, it can be amended at any point in time. We waited just till the year was over and incorporated all the motions right up to the last one, which was, I think, late December. So we're pretty happy to have this done at this point, and we look for 3 readings to amend the 2021 5-year financial plan.
Thank you. Councillor McLean.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just wondering if there's any risk to doing this at the end of the year versus doing it throughout the year.
There's no risk. They say you can amend it at any time, and we could do it 4 times throughout the year. However, over the past number of years, we've chosen to do it right after the year end, and capture everything that was motion made of. I think it's important to do it before we get into the year-end stuff, because there's implications of carryovers and things like that. So we try and do it soon after the year-end.
Thank you. Councillor Toth?
Thank you. Just sort of, I guess, half following up on that. I think we do it twice a year at the SDRD. Is there a best practices, or is it just preference, or is it always been done at the end of the year in the district of Sechelt, and it'll always be done at the end of the year for time immemorial? Thank you.
If I knew in November there were going to be no more financial motions, I would do it in November. But if you're doing it in September, October, November, and you're going to have another motion or another financial motion, I think it's more of a preference that you just capture it all as soon as you can once the year's done. But that's how we've been doing it here.
I have a question. So we've got 15 changes here. That's for the whole year?
That's for the year after the budget had been approved.
Yes.
Yes.
15 out of a gazillion transactions is a small amount, right?
Yeah. But I just think it's we could do it 4 times, but every time is substantial work, and to do it the once it's very efficient, and it's good timing to do it.
Yeah, I think what you're attempting to do is just make sure that we have them all captured and
correct,
have them reflected in the budget.
And before we get into the year end, typically.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Any other questions from council? All right, there is a recommendation on page 49. Councillor Toth?
I will move recommendation 2 that council proceed with giving first, second, and third reading to the District of Sechelt 2021 through 2025 Consolidated Financial Plan Amendment Bylaw number 595-1, 2022.
Thank you, and that's been seconded. All those in favor? Thank you. So moving on to item 8.2B on page 54. District of Sechelt 2021 to 2025 Consolidated Financial Plan Amendment Bylaw number 595-1, 2022, a bylaw to adopt the financial plan for the years 2021 to 2025. And I'd look for someone to move first reading. Moved, seconded, all in favor? Thank you. District of Sechelt 2021 to 2025 Consolidated Financial Plan Amendment Bylaw number 595-1, 2022, a bylaw to adopt the financial plan for the years 2021 to 2025, and someone move second reading. Moved and seconded, all in favor? Thank you. And then District of Sechelt 2021 to 2025 Consolidated Financial Plan Amendment Bylaw number 595-1, 2022, a bylaw to adopt the financial plan for the years 2021 to 2025, and looking for a third reading. Moved, seconded, all in favor? Thank you. Moving on to item 8.3, zoning amendment bylaw number 25-312, 2021, West Core Lands, and Mr. Kovowitz.
Thank you. I only have a short verbal presentation for this one, as the staff report, I think, speaks for itself. I'm pleased to present for consideration of third reading a bylaw to facilitate a 34-unit townhouse development on Mills Road. Council gave second reading back on October 20th, 2021, where Council directed staff to schedule a public hearing. We subsequently held the public hearing on November 24th, 2021. And the public hearing was hosted virtually via Zoom and attended by 26 members of the public. The provided staff report contains a summary of comments received, as well as copies of all written submissions received to date. And staff also were pleased to provide some clarification on a few questions and issues that came up at the public hearing. And staff recommend that several conditions be met prior to bylaw adoption as provided for in the report. I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, questions? Councillor Top.
Thank you. It's not so much a question as it is a comment. You know, we heard a lot from the community and the neighborhood in that area. Personally, I'm in favor of this development. I would have no problem with it in my neighborhood. But I can't ignore the fact that we didn't hear from a single person in the neighborhood who is supportive of this project. Developer did make some minor concessions based on the neighborhood feedback, but it's clear that they don't feel that it's gone far enough. I'd like to see the developer have a little more conversation directly with that neighborhood to address some of those concerns around storage and parking, you know, especially in light of our new curbside program, things like that. Yeah, so supportive of some further conversation happening with the neighborhood around this project, but I don't feel that I could support it today. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from council? All right, I'm going to look at page 63, talks about parking. That was one of the concerns that was brought forward by the residents in the area. And they were concerned that there wasn't sufficient parking. And what this basically says is that the parking provided is the same as it would be for single-family homes. So that's, it answers their questions around that. Many jurisdictions do not require any off-street parking for secondary suites, and Gibson's is an example of that one. Councillor McLean.
Yeah, maybe I'll just highlight some of the reasons why I'm in support of this development. When we look at the district of Sechelt, there are ideal developments, and then there's what we get. And unfortunately, the way our development system is driven is it's when somebody has an application, they bring it forward. So yes, there are better places to build. I hope to see applications from those places. But at this point, we are considering this proposal on this lot. And this is what is the best version of this design, I believe. I think a lot of the comments, I did go through and read all 100 pages of the comments, because I do want to thank everyone for providing that feedback. But one thing that I think really needs to be recognized is that there is very little townhouse living in the district of Sechelt. It is a different type of living, and that is something that some people are looking for. And with that comes a different lifestyle, less storage, less dependence on cars, and it's just smaller. That's what some people want. We have very few options for that. And one of our key goals in the district of Sechelt is to provide more different forms of housing. So this is a different form of housing from the majority single family homes that we have in Sechelt. So I think that's a good thing for Sechelt as a community. And then in terms of what we can do with this lot, this is the best proposal. It brings that diversity. I think it is done it's a good design. It will bring new people to the neighborhood, which I think will be a benefit. Overall, I think this development is good for Sechelt at the end of the day.
Thank you. Councillor Toth.
Thank you. I do actually have one question that sort of arose thinking about my comments earlier. Given our new curbside collection program that we have with the 3 bins per house, it's required that residents keep those bins secured or indoors or what have you until collection day. Has it been identified that the storage area is actually sufficient for the number of bins that are going to be required by this development?
There would be more detailed considerations exactly for the configuration of the storage areas for waste in the development permit process, where we would iron out those exact details. A dedicated screened area for waste has been provided for on the site plan so far. It would be anticipated that most of the units would likely have shared garbage facilities, as you'd typically see at a strata unit, not necessarily that every single unit would have their own recycling containers, their own garbage cans and whatnot. It would likely be centralized to some degree in 1 or 2 locations on the property.
Follow-up, okay.
Does our waste control or collection bylaw, whatever, actually provide provision for, shared facilities and shared billing if 2 houses are using 1 recycling bin? I know of a couple townhouse complexes here in Sechelt that every unit got 3 bins each, and even with garages, they don't have anywhere to store all their bins. So just want a little more clarity there.
I'd likely have to defer on my engineering colleagues to exactly answer that question around the new bylaw, which now does include strata collection, whereas previously it didn't. That's a fairly recent change, so we come back with more information on that.
Mr. Douglas, do you have any further information for us?
Yeah, all of the townhomes would each receive 3 bins, or we would look at a communal garbage, having a big bin. But right now we've transitioned all the townhomes that we do have to 3 bins to each unit.
So that's what you're saying, is that's at the behest of the townhome development itself to determine how they want that dealt with?
No, right now it's 3 bins per unit is what we would go forward with.
Unless they propose something different?
Yeah, or we determined with them that like a big single bin would work better.
Thank you. Councillor Lamb.
I'm going to vote in favor of this project. It's one of these things. There's lots. I guess we have to provide opportunities for different types of development and different types of construction in the community, and it's not a bad location. It gives people, there's a little park up there, it gives people an opportunity to have some outdoor space, and it's easy to walk to. There's a bus road on Norwest Bay Road, and there's a bus road on the Sunshine Coast Highway that's fairly easy access. And I know that's not the only reason to let this development go forward, but we do have to. Other types of development have to move forward here, and not just only single-family homes. So, anyways, I'm going to vote in favor of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on the report? Seeing none, there are some recommendations on page 60. What would you like to do? Okay. Councillor McLean.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to move recommendation 2 that council give 3rd reading to the zoning amendment bylaw number 25-312 2021 West Core Lands. Also move recommendation 3 that the following conditions be met before zoning amendment bylaw number 25-312 2021 West Core Lands is considered for adoption. And a community amenity contribution of $57,500 be placed into the District of Sechelt. Be paid to the District of Sechelt and split evenly between the Community Amenity Reserve Fund and the Affordable Housing Fund. And B, recommendations included in the CTS Transportation Impact Assessment dated July 2021 be completed at the expense of the applicant and to the satisfaction of the Director of Engineering and Operations. And finally, I'll move recommendation 4 that zoning amendment bylaw number 25-312-2021 be referred to the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure for approval pursuant to Section 52 of the Transportation Act.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for the recommendation? Seconded. All right. Final comments, questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Would you like that recorded? Thank you. Moving on to page 162, item 8.3B. This is the actual zoning amendment bylaw. So this is District of Sechelt bylaw number 25-312-2021, West Core Lands, being a bylaw to amend District of Sechelt zoning bylaw number 25-1987. I'd look for someone to move third reading. Moved, seconded, all in favor? Thank you. And any opposed? And would you like that recorded? Yes, please. Thank you. Moving on to item 8.4A. Sechelt Downtown Business Improvement Area Bylaw number 599-2021, subject to petition against. And I'll turn over to our corporate officer.
Thank you, Your Worship. This report is to present the results of the Downtown Business Improvement Area petition against, and to bring forward proposed Sechelt Downtown Business Improvement Area Bylaw number 599 for consideration of adoption. At its October 6th regular meeting, Council gave first, second, and third reading to proposed Downtown Business Improvement Area Bylaw 599 as a local area service on Council initiative subject to petition against, which is follows the requirements of the community charter. That includes a petition against process, which must take place prior to the bylaw being considered for adoption. And that process took place from November 6th to December 7th. And at the time of closing, we had received 15 petitions against. The charter requires that that the petition results be certified, and so I have attached that to my report. But in essence, those 15 petitions are not adequate to overturn the bylaw, and so the bylaw is in front of you now for consideration of adoption, and that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, any questions or comments? Seeing none, I'd look for Councillor Toth.
I will move recommendation 2 that Council proceed with adoption of Downtown Business Improvement Area Bylaw number 599-2021.
Is there a seconder for the recommendation? Seconded. All those in favor? Thank you. Moving on to page 169. This is 8.4B. District of Sechelt bylaw number 599-2021, a bylaw to establish and designate a business improvement area. And I'd look for someone to move adoption. Moved. Seconded. All in favor? Thank you. We're going to move on to the new business before we go on to 10.1. So we're going to start with 9.1, AVICC Resolution. So this is Association of Vancouver Island and Coastal Communities Resolution. Deadline for submission of this is January 28th. So we will not have another council meeting before that. So I think Jennifer's going to put it up on the screen. This came out earlier, and then Councillor McLean actually came forward with a modification, so we incorporated that. So I hope you can read this. Do you want me to read it out? Proposed AVICC resolution says cannabis controls and communications with local government. Whereas medical cannabis production is increasing across BC and is prevalent on the Sunshine Coast, but local governments and RCMP have no mechanism available to monitor and enforce local, provincial, and federal legislation to ensure the safety of our citizens. And whereas local governments do not have financial resources to develop the capacity to enforce local bylaws that are needed to ensure our neighborhoods are safe, therefore be it resolved that AVICC and UBCM advocate to the federal government, specifically the Prime Minister, Minister of Finance, Minister of Mental Health and Addictions, Minister of Health, Minister of Justice and Attorney General of Canada, and Minister of Public Safety to, number one, reduce the number of plants approved under personal medical cannabis licenses and to provide local government legislative oversight over the production of medical cannabis. Two, to share revenue from commercial cannabis production and retail sales with local governments and RCMP to build capacity for enforcement of legal and criminal cannabis activity. Be it further resolved that UBCM be considered for the role as administrator of cannabis revenue sharing between Canada, the province of British Columbia, and British Columbia local governments. So that would be the resolution that we would forward to AVICC. Any questions or comments from council? All right, I'd look for a motion to submit this. Councillor McLean, I saw your hand up there.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for incorporating my suggestions on the first one. I did suggest removing the second point because I think that's been a well-discussed item. And there are motions nearly every year from other communities in that, and I think everyone is well aware of that issue. So I don't see the value of further advocacy on that one. Whereas the first point, I think, is something that we've been pushing on specifically from the District of Sechelt, from feedback from citizens.
All right, any other input on that? I'm okay with removing that. Councillor Todd?
I certainly see Councillor McLean's perspective or point in terms of removing that because, yeah, it has come up, I think, every UBCM that I've attended so far. But I think the reason it's in here is because so far the province and federal government have done nothing on that front. And I don't think there's anything wrong with us asking again because I think it's going to be important. And I think that was part of the pretense of them proceeding down this road in the first place. And so far we haven't seen any of the revenue from these programs.
Thank you. All right. So I'd look for a recommendation to submit this to AVICC. Councillor Toth? Move this as presented? Okay, is there a seconder for that? Seconded, thank you. Okay, we're going to go back to that in a second. So it's been moved by Councillor Toth, seconded by Councillor Rowe. All those in favor? Thank you. All right, so now let's go back to that. There's another recommendation at the bottom. All right, so that proposed council resolution, that the AVICC resolution titled Cannabis Controls and Communications with Local Government be referred to all AVICC and UBCM members to seek their endorsements. Now, this is going to do two things. One is we actually had a conversation with Minister Farnworth at UBCM about them supporting us in advocating to the federal government, and they said they would. So bringing this up at UBCM and AVICC will actually raise the profile of this conversation with all of the organizations so that we can garner support with the federal government. The Cannabis Act is actually under review right now, and they aren't focusing on the medical component. They're focusing on all the rest of it, although the medical component is part of the Cannabis Act. It was all incorporated in one. So this would raise the profile of this issue with other local governments across the country even, because it is an issue everywhere. So I'll make this resolution that we do this, and then this would be forwarded out to everyone in BC. And it's seconded. All right, any other questions or comments? All those in favor? Thank you. All right, we're going to move on to item 9.2, Poverty Reduction Strategy Phase 2 Grant. So I brought this forward as a late item today because of timing. The grant application is going in February 11th, I believe it is. And given that LGLA was scheduled for the beginning of February, that 1 week in February, all of the governments on the Sunshine Coast have less meetings. And we are looking at doing a joint submission again as a follow-up to the Poverty Reduction Action Plan that we did last year on behalf of all the governments on the Sunshine Coast. And we need a resolution from the other governments as part of this. So this kind of came to light just in the last couple of days because we had a conversation with the town of Gibsons, and they said they would need this coming to them next week, Tuesday, in order to get it onto an agenda prior to February 11th, because the last meeting they will have, because of the scheduling piece, is February 1st. So that's why we're bringing this forward tonight. And we're going to see if Jennifer can bring this up. I know. She's doing an awesome job. Okay. So here's the resolutions. So the District of Sechelt agrees to be the lead partner in the regional application to UBCM's Poverty Reduction Strategy Phase 2 and will provide support for the proposed activities and the overall grant management. And that Council requests the SDRD, Town of Gibsons, SIGD, provide a resolution that clearly indicates support for the District of Sechelt to receive and manage the grant funding on their behalf. So I'll make that resolution and recommendation. Is there a seconder for the recommendation? Councillor Toth.
Reminder, what is the Phase 2 items that are being looked at that we're looking at grant funding for?
Okay, Phase 2 is actually to take all of the recommendations in the plan that was done and actually implement them. So it would be things like a social planning table, right? It would, all of the, like they would be including all of the recommendations. I think there were 10 or 12 or something recommendations. All of them would be included in the application. So it's actioning the recommendations in the plan. And that's part of what has to be identified in the grant application. All right, so I haven't seen a seconder for the recommendation. Janice seconded? Okay. Any other questions or comments about this? Councillor McLean.
Yeah, I just want to speak in support. I know we're a little light on details right now due to the rush nature of this, but when the poverty reduction plan was presented to council, I raised the concern about the follow through on it and ensuring that it's not just a report on a shelf. At that time, we didn't really know what the province would do in terms of the next phase. Since then, they've stepped up to provide some money to keep it going. So given the results of the first phase and the strategy that's been presented, I think the critical step is we have the follow through. And in order to do that, we need a little bit of money. Grant money is there. Let's apply for it, and the details will come out as they come out.
Thank you. Seeing no further questions or comments, all those in favor? Thank you. All right, let's move on to item 10.1. This is Investing in Canada Infrastructure Green Infrastructure Grant, West Porpoise Bay A02 Sewer Expansion Area Phase 2. And over to Mr. Dillon.
Thank you, Your Worship. This opportunity presented itself before the New Year end, or before New Year's, and we looked at various projects that would fit the criteria of this grant opportunity and that were more or less shovel ready in terms of we knew what we wanted to build and what the design costs would be. So I will ask the Manager of Construction and Infrastructure Renewal, Sanath Bandera, to please present his presentation with regards to this, if he has one to present.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, Mr. Bandera, do you have
Yes,
a presentation?
yeah. I think, can you see this?
Yes?
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Director Dillon. Good evening, everyone. So I have a very brief presentation on ICIB grant, third intake for 2022. The purpose of this report is to seek the council direction to apply for the ICIP grant third intake to facilitate construction of centers for expansion in the area AO2 phase 3. The province has updated, this is a good news, updated the deadline from January 26, 2022 to February 23rd, 2022. That will allow the staff to provide a letter of support from Vancouver Coastal Health. The last time we did that, but we need to update on that, and also allow us to do provide historical information on septic sewer in this area to support our grant committee. This area is a part of the sewer functional plan completed in 2005, and several areas of this plan have already been completed. In 2016, the District of Seychelles completed the phase 1 and phase 2 of the area, but due to financial constraints, we were unable to complete phase 3. And this is the sewer functional plan 2005. On the left side, you can see the West Purpose Bay area. That different areas you can see over there. The area AO2 include this whole area. And on the right side, you can see the West Seychelles area. We have completed most of that area, and AO8 we completed 2012 with the gas tax. AO6 completed 2018-2019 with gas tax and clean water wastewater fund, and most of the other areas completed by the developers. And this is the subject area. We are interested to apply the grant. The blue and pink both altogether is called area A2, as previously noted in that sewer functional plan. And the areas, you can see that the light red color, that is the area we haven't completed last funding opportunity due to the financial constraints. The financial implications, the total estimated cost is 1.35 million for design and construction. The grant covers 73.33 combined from the provincial and federal, which is 0.99 million. And the district contribution is to be 0.36 million to be allocated from 2023 Canada Community Building Fund, that's called formerly a gas tax, and the sewer reserves. And this is a recommendation. The slide shows that the staff recommendation as presented. And this concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions if you have.
Thank you. I can have you stop sharing your screen. All right. Sanat, can you stop sharing your screen there, please?
Oh, sorry.
Thank you. That's okay. Councillor Toth and then Councillor McLean.
Thank you. I think, grant funding, our infrastructure, opportunities that arise are great, that staff are looking for them and taking advantage of them when they can. Just for some context, $1.3 million for 26 homes is about $50,000 per house connected, which I think is significantly up from the first the other phases of the infill improvement. A question for Director Dillon, though. You had referenced some other projects, or you had referenced that other projects were considered. Just wondering if you could speak briefly to those, what other options or projects were looked at, and why this particular one was chosen over any of the others. Thank you.
Thank you for the question, and through your worship, yeah, we looked at other options, other potential opportunities. This particular grant funding opportunity was for improving environmental quality, and so Dusty Road was a facility that we looked at as a potential funding opportunity. Did not feel that we had done the long-term planning and full assessment and looking at the various options in the time frame required to apply for this particular grant funding opportunity to take advantage of that. So that is one of the other ones we looked at for using for this grant. And it just seemed that because we had done the work previously with regards to this expansion in the West Porpoise Bay area, it was the one that we could actually give to the province and the timelines they had given to us. As it's, I think it's been past practice on other grant funding opportunities that we've submitted that we don't have a lot of lead time sometimes on submitting a particular opportunity to the province for approval.
Thank you. Councillor McLean.
Yeah, I'm just wondering why these properties. Is there any specific justification for these, such as failing septic fields that we're aware of, or potential risks to environmental habitats?
Again, thank you for the question, through your worship. My understanding is that this was chosen because it was a subject of a previous grant application. So sequentially, it was the next one in line, but I will defer to the manager of municipal construction to see if he's got any more context around that, given he has a longer history with the development of that area. Sanath?
Thank you. A good question that. So the previous application, so everything's included, the whole area, but unfortunately our tender came about that the allocated funding. So then the staff decided to phasing of this one, and phasing we decided one is that to maximize utilize the amount to service maximize number of lots, and this is the section is the most difficult and expensive. So we thought it to keep this one for the funding opportunity. And we included last year, 2019, another funding opportunity to district-wide all infill areas. We included to that grant. That's about nearly $6.5 million. But that grant also denied. So so as Director Dillon explained previously, why didn't we explore other opportunities in other projects? Yes, we did, like a Dusty Road, and the Dusty Road one need land acquisition, so the grant will not allow to land acquisitions kind of things. So I think that is the reason we choose this one to expand the sewer phase 3.
Thank you. Councillor Lamb.
There you go. So there'd be 26 homes that this new pipeline will accommodate. And so once the pipe's in, then each property will they have 1 year or 5 years or 10 years to hook up to it? And then that hookup will be at their expense. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
Mr. Douglas?
Yes, through the mayor. Good question. They have to connect within 2 years, or they start paying within 2 years.
Yeah, the grace period is 2 years. Then there's no connection charge and also no inspection charges. That's what we did previously at the properties.
Okay. And at this moment, there's no indication that any of the fields in that the septic fields in that area are failing. Is that correct? Or
yes, I think most of that properties close to the inlet, those have not been developed yet. But we have a couple of reports that fail, the septic before. So we are going to explore more and more to support our grant application. If we provide those information to the committee of the grant, that will help us. This will give a positive merit.
okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Toth.
I hope I'm misreading this. On page 188 of our agenda, the second paragraph there makes reference to the Canada Community Building Funds or a federal contribution for these purposes and cannot be utilized for the ultimate recipient's funding contribution to the project. Am I interpreting that incorrectly? Or, yeah, I'll just leave it there.
I would like to ask, I would defer that question to David, Director David.
Yeah, I'll have to look into that further.
Given that the program submission deadline has been extended, I'm wondering if we should refer this back to staff to confirm to come forward at the next council meeting.
So what you're indicating is that the funds that we were potentially going to do our portion with the community building funds are not eligible to be used for this.
That's what I read on page 188.
Okay. Councillor McLean?
Yeah, so I guess at the end of the day, I'm not in favor of this project. I look at the 1/3 funding from the District of Sechelt, and no matter the source, it's $350,000. So that's if it's community works funds, that's a fairly flexible fund. We can use those monies elsewhere for ditching, for roads, for trails. So my question is this the best use of that money that the District of Sechelt is contributing? And I don't believe so. The one thing that this project has going for us is that it does have some cost recovery, because once we have people connected, we can charge them a sewer user fee. But at about $600 per year, the recovery rate on that is 20+ years. So that's a fairly long return if we're just looking at it from a financial perspective. So I didn't see the environmental need. The financial isn't quite there. In terms of a development need, I don't think bringing in sewer to this area really unlocks much smart density. So I think there are much better uses for our portion of this fund. So I'm not going to be in support of this application.
Thank you. It sounds like we should refer this back to staff at this point to investigate the funding source from the District of Sechelt. And we're also looking for additional information with regards to the impact, like Mr. Bandera was talking about potential failing fields, et cetera. We need to know the environmental impact of what's going on up in the area.
Your Worship, if I may, on that point, determining whether a septic field has failed, it may not be an obvious thing, and it's usually in the realm of Vancouver or the coastal, I guess, the health authority. It's a complaint-driven process. It's there's not inspectors out in the field actively looking for that failed fields. So if somebody reports one, they will look at it, but they're not making any active effort. there are ways to determine if there might be failing fields in your neighborhood by taking water samples out of ditches and seeing if they have fecal coliforms in them, but attributing the fecal coliforms to failing septic fields or just animal droppings can sometimes be difficult and require some more detailed biological analysis. So I think we definitely have to follow up on the stacking provisions in this funding opportunity. So I think we will look at that in terms of the finding where the septic fields have failed or not. That's a little bit more of a bigger task.
Okay, so the other piece, Mr. Bandera, you showed us a map of all of those various areas that required sewer, and you're saying this is the last piece in all of those?
No, area 2, last piece.
Oh, just of area 2, it's the last piece.
Yes.
There are other areas on there as well that require sewer provided?
Recent developments provide some of the areas
Yes.
that I think close to the Rippleway. Yes,
Right.
it is. Yeah.
Okay, so I still think we need to maybe we just refer this back to staff at this point for further review of the funding sources. I'll make that recommendation. Is there a seconder? Seconded? All right, any other questions or comments? All those in favor? Thank you. Thank you, and we'll see this come back. Councillor McLean?
It's just an opposed vote, but I don't need it recorded.
Okay, thank you. All right, moving on to item 10.2, page 204 to 209. And this is the Trail Bay Oceanfront Boulevard Improvement Project. Mr. Bandera.
Thank you, Worship. I would like Director Dillon to bring some brief information on that, then I can proceed that the presentation.
Yes, Your Worship. I'd like to just introduce the topic briefly and then transfer it over to Mr. Bandera for the technical aspects of what we're proposing. Just wanted to set the stage for what these proposals are about. So in the last year, we had a couple delegations come forward expressing concerns about the road surface as well as pedestrian separation on that shared boulevard. And so what we did is we focused on just those two items, having a better road surface and addressing some of the pedestrian separation concerns that were raised. And so this is not what the previous grant application Trail Bay proposal was. Our lowest costed option on this is about 1/10 the cost of that. This specifically focuses on safety, and these are potential options that could be used to for a 5-year window or so to address safety while we come up with a comprehensive plan for the Trail Bay waterfront. And also this project, the parks portion of it would be covered by Parks DCCs to 100% to a maximum of 174,000. But currently our Parks DCC reserves are not sufficient to fund that. Can try and dig up the exact number, but I'll at the end of the presentation, but I will transfer this over to Mr. Bandera to outline the specific options and what they look like.
Thank you, Director Dillon. Yes, we have a short presentation on Trail Avenue Boulevard improvement options. The purpose of this presentation is to provide a low-cost solution to address the current safety concerns on Trail Bay Boulevard and the pavement restoration and the boulevard, and present 3 options. The total waterfront path is about 850 meter long, which include a 210 meter length of transition shared lane. Staff applied for a grant for this improvement with the premium options, where the construction cost were around over 600,000. Unfortunately, this grant application was denied. In 2019, the district also conducted a pilot study by closing the parking lane, the parallel parking lane, to vehicles, and assess the public perception. In 2021, Council received 2 petitions. One is April 2021. So that petition in favor to closing parking parallel parking lane and increasing active transportation. And other counter petition received July 2021. That one in favor maintaining parking with 188 signatures. So both are nearly a 50-50 in the petitions. So the base of informations and the district staff developed a couple of options, few options. The option 1 is a one-way traffic while fixing existing depressions and the potholes and the pavement restoration, and then removal of existing parallel parking, and the 3.5 meter wide asphalt multi-use pathway that is within the current asphalt area. We propose to provide curbing and delineate that with the traffic 3.5 meter wide. The cost for this is the lowest cost. That came up 74,700, and that money, the funding come through a 2022 paving program, that is 44,700, and 30,000 from the transportation safety improvement. And this is a graphical illustration of that option. So the mostly on the right side here, close to Trail Avenue, is more depressions and pavement depressions, difficult even vehicles and the people to walk. And there's in the spot in the middle somewhere here. So these options we reinstate the road paving to that section, and then we provide the curb line in keeping the one driving lane about 3.25 meter wide, and leaving the balance area for biking and cycling shown here. So you can see the cross section, the driving lane, and the asphalt curbing for separation, and then the bikers and the pedestrians can all go there. And option 2, this is the staff preferred option. This is a one-way traffic while fixing existing depressions and potholes. And also we maintain the existing parallel parking as it is. And then we are going to provide separated 2 meter wide asphalt sidewalk, which the cost for this one is 108,900, and 30,000 from the transportation safety improvement, and 78,900 from 2022 paving program. And this is also the similar graphical illustration here. So you can see that the parking lane keeping as it is, and we are going to provide the 2 meter wide separated walking facility. But sometimes we have some constraints because this is a concept design. So in that particular cases, we have to bump out. And so, for example, this is one of the beach access. So keep the beach access as it is. So we need to little design changes to bump up here and allowing the parking on the both sides and keeping this area. So these are detailed design stage. We can add this, but its concept is a 2 meter wide separated asphalt pathway for walking while keeping the existing parallel parking. And this is a third option. This one is a full road closure. We brought this one previously, some other, I think probably some other council and other public engagements. In this particular case, we provide parking on each side with hammerhead. The total 10 stall, 4 handicap parking and 6 regular. And also we propose that separated 3.5 meter wide asphalt multi-use pathway to delineate between the pedestrians, cyclists, and the micro mobility vehicles such as scooters and etc. So this one is 162,435, 30,000 from the transportation safety improvement and 132,435 from the 2022 paving program. And this is the graphical illustration on this one. And you can see that here handicap parking and 3 parking stall on both ends and a hammerhead. So people can come over here and parking and reverse and going that way. So then the staff also developed another hybrid option, but similar to this. That option we have not presented here because of the cost. It's cost more than all these options. That option has parking on this area and 1 lane all the way up over here, and also some 2 parking pockets on this side and that side. Each parking pocket has 3 stalls and total 6, but the cost is about more than 100,000 more than the option number preferred option number 2. This is a financial implication. As presented previously, preferred option is option number 2, 108,900. That will provide the parking lane as well as driving lane and separated walking facility. The communication strategies upon approval of the council, the preliminary design will be developed by the in-house by the district staff, and also we notify the impacted residents by hand delivered letters, and also for general public will be notified through district website and social media and newspaper. And also these are the options as noted in our council report. Option 1, the council directs staff to proceed with option number 1. The council directs staff to proceed with option number 3, or that the council directs staff to proceed with an alternative options. This is a recommendation as presented. The staff recommend the most cost-effective and address all the concerns, safety concerns with this option number 2. And I would like to answer the question and answers if you have.
Just before we get to the Q&A, just some additional information on this. So this would be funded from funding envelopes that were approved as part of the 2022 budget process. So the community-wide transportation safety improvements were approved. So this would use a portion of that, as well as other funding envelopes that were approved. So the money's in line for this. We can build these options this summer. Council can choose the option we've recommended identify a permutation of options or defer to a later time if they so wish. And if that was the outcome, then we would just be filling in potholes for this year. So with that, I'd be happy to field any questions.
Thank you. Councillor Toth.
In potholes sounds really good to me for this year. I'm not going to lie. I'm a little upset about this coming back again. I'm bothered that option 3 to fully close the boulevard is being presented again. As a council, we passed a motion specifically to keep a travel lane open. And it's clear that closing the boulevard is not an overwhelmingly popular opinion. We also passed a motion to put redevelopment of the boulevard on the shelf until a grant opportunity came along. We did pass a motion to look at some minor safety improvements. I am legitimately interested in a report looking at the number of reported incidents for the last 5 years, but I haven't wanted to burden staff with more to do. So I've sort of quietly left it alone. You know, we have a lot of projects in process or partially completed or delayed on starting. I'm not particularly interested in trying to cobble together a funding plan for this project, just add it to the incomplete project list. You know, after a couple of years of not going forward with the paving program, a lot of our higher traffic roads are looking pretty rough. You know, if staff want to patch the existing potholes, fine, leave it alone. It's hardly an urgent item. I would be interested in this coming forward, perhaps as part of budget 2023, but you know, with a more comprehensive funding plan going into it, looking at this funding opportunity or options, whatever. But I'd like to hear from the rest of council.
Thank you. Council. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Rowe.
Hey, I got my mute button working, or unmute. I'm not particularly interested in diverting money again from the paving program at this time. That's my main concern with this. I would like to see this come forward for 2023, I think. And I suppose it could be a potentially, or will be a different council looking at it. So whether we want the boulevard closed or not may be irrelevant, but I concur with Councillor Toth that we've made that pretty well known, even though some people on Facebook tend to ignore that resolution. However, I do appreciate staff bringing this forward out of in response to the concerns raised by the delegation that we have. So I do appreciate that work, but I'm really not in support of diverting money away from the paving program again, particularly this winter has had to have had a toll, and so that's where I am. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Lamb.
Yep, I just, I agree 100% with the last two councillors that have spoken. And, you know, it's not a high-speed road. Anybody I've seen along there drives along there 5-10K. You know, let's leave it, move on. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McLean. Let's go to Director Dillon first.
Yes, Your Worship. I just wanted to provide some additional information with regards to what the intent is for the paving program. So we have accumulated around 750,000 in money that hasn't happened in in past years because I guess we haven't had the capacity to put forward the RFP. So the plan for this summer was to put out another RFP with the new money that's being approved in the 2022 budget, in addition to what the carries over and do an asphalt, a major road blitz. So we want to look at repaving Norwest Bay Road and put that out as a very good size paving contract. So this is about 25,000 from about 800,000, and when you add together what is in carryovers and what we've been approved for 2022. So just wanted to provide that context there because there were some questions on that.
Thank you. Councillor Lamb? Sorry, Councillor Lamb, you didn't take your hand down. Councillor McLean.
Yeah, thank you. I'm in support of this project, in particular option 2. I think it is a cost-effective design which meets much of the needs of our community. So I want to thank staff for bringing that cost down from about $600,000 to about $100,000. We have heard loud and clear that people want to have areas where they feel safe, where they don't need to be checking their shoulders for a car, where they can walk comfortably with walkers, not going over the bumpy surface that is Boulevard right now, where they can walk with children and they don't have to worry about their children running into cars. Yes, it is low speed, but that's it. It is probably one of our most used parks. It is one of our highest walking areas in all of the district of Sechelt. And it has some of the worst facilities. So a bare minimum that I think the citizens of the district of Sechelt would expect is a sidewalk. This is a more effective version of a sidewalk. It's a very basic design. And I think this is something that when elected, I wanted to make a more walkable community. And you need a place to walk that is not middle of a road. And this is a very prudent design to create that, to create the safe, healthy community that we want to see. And I prioritize the health of our citizens above taking away a small portion of our road paving budget.
Councillor Kuster?
Hi. Actually, I think I've given this some thought, and after hearing from Director Dillon, I agree with Councillor McLean. I think this has been something that's. Can you hear me? Sorry. Okay. I think
yes, sorry. There was just some interference in the gallery here.
Okay. Yeah. So I think it's something that we need in our community. It's been on the radar for a long time. And I think I support Councillor McLean and what he said after hearing from Director Dillon. So.
Thank you. Councillor Topp.
Councillor McLean made reference to our residents expecting sidewalks. I just want to point out that we don't even have sidewalks around most of our elementary schools. Davis Bay doesn't have a sidewalk. Kinnickinnick doesn't. Well, excuse me. There's a very short section of sidewalk in front of Kinnickinnick. And West Sechelt, very short section of sidewalk in front of West Sechelt Elementary right now. If we want to build sidewalks, let's build sidewalks around our schools or in the places where we've been sorely lacking in the facilities for a lot longer. It's a low speed road. I've never heard of anybody actually getting hurt out there.
All right, I understand. I have not been over on Boulevard for probably since the summer. So at that point, there were a lot of potholes, et cetera, on Boulevard. Those need to be fixed anyway, correct? They haven't been fixed to this point. They're still there. So those would cost to be paved anyway. I'm actually in favor of moving this forward. Option 2. So I think I'd like to see this move forward. Question I have is, what is the width of the walkway by the watermark? Is that 3.5 meters?
Yes, 3.5 meter.
That's 3.5. Sorry.
Your Worship, I just piggyback onto Mr. Bandera's answer. There's along the waterfront there are differing widths of sidewalk, and the other thing is those potholes. Yes, we could put cold mix into them. The issue there is deeper though. We'd actually have to do a sub excavation to fix them properly, because I think we filled them up with cold mix in the past, and there might be an issue with the base not being proper in that spot. So in order to have a pothole repair that's going to last at least a season, I think we're going to have to do a little bit of digging there to have it done properly. We could fix them in, but my guess is that within a season and going through a winter, we're going to see the same thing happen again. So I mean, that to do those properly, we'd have to be doing some digging there.
So it sounds like we either leave it or we do something a little more advanced, like option 2. Because the fixing of the potholes would be a good portion to actually, like the cost to do that. Yes, it may not be the 108,000, but it would be more than a little bit.
Yes, Your Worship. My history in Seashell is fairly recent, but I went back and looked at some historical photography and what's available through Google Street View, which goes back to 2011. And I used to design highways. I used to build highways, and what I've seen is those potholes in those particular locations have been there for at least a decade now, and they were probably there longer. So when they're that long, I'm sure past public works crews have made efforts to fill those potholes in with cold mix. So what's required is a proper sub excavation, lining the excavation with geotextile, and building up proper with proper engineered fill, and that's going to fix it long term. Otherwise, we'll put in more cold mix, and we'll likely see the exact same potholes show up again later in the exact same locations.
Thank you, Councillor Lamb.
Yep,
I think you have something to say.
I got something to say, because I walk that boulevard fairly often, probably once every 2 to 3 weeks at least. Not this week, but anyways, if the best thing to do is leave that thing alone for right now. Throw a couple of wheelbarrows of cold mix in it. How many potholes are we talking about? Are we talking 2 or 3? And once you start digging that thing up, you're going to start finding canoes and all kinds of stuff in there. This is not a simple little thing we're talking about here. So, the best thing we can do right now is just, if you want to put $10,000 into fixing something up that doesn't need to be fixed, do that and move on and leave this thing where it is, and let the next council wait for a grant of some sort that comes along, because when you start digging this thing up, you're going to have a problem, and it's not going to be a $100,000 fix. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Toth.
Thank you, Councillor Lamb. I had completely forgotten about archaeological costs because I don't recall seeing them in the report. I don't have it open right at the moment. So I'd like to start with a motion to refer option 2 of the Boulevard project and option 2 only to the 2023 budget process to be given consideration of a more wholesome funding source.
Is there a seconder for the recommendation? Seconded. Thank you. Any other questions or comments on the recommendation? Councillor Kuster.
To staff, just a quick question. Has archaeological bin, was that part of the plan when presenting this? Do we have any idea about that?
Yes, we included, we allocated some funding for part of that, the total cost for archaeological studies, archaeological overview.
So you're saying it's included in the 108,900 already?
That's already there.
Thank you. All right, Councillor Lamb, did you have another question or comment?
I have another comment, and if the native band went and did they put in the sewer, I think down by the conveyor belt down in that area, and they were down there for months when they started digging that up because there was archaeological stuff all over the place. They dug up a pile of stuff. So this is not a simple program that you're going to run into. You're going to run into lots of problems there. It just has to be. This is something we don't want to start digging up right now and thinking you're going to fix it for $100,000.
Thank you. Councillor Kuster, do you have other comments? All right, so we have a recommendation on the floor that option 2 be referred for further discussion at the 2023 budget deliberations. Is that correct? Yeah. Close enough? Okay. So that's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? All those opposed? Okay, that motion is defeated. Would someone like to make another recommendation? Councillor McLean.
Let's just go through the motion. I'll move recommendation 2 that council direct staff to proceed with option 2, allowing one-way travel lane, 1 parking lane, and 2-meter wide asphalt sidewalk at a cost of $108,900, with $78,900 allocated from 2022 road paving program and $30,000 from district-wide transportation safety improvement budget.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for the recommendation? Seconded. All right. I know where this is going. All those in favor? All those opposed? That's defeated. All right. We don't have to make a recommendation. I mean, we received the report. It can not go anywhere. Is there another recommendation that anyone would like to make? All right, seeing none, I guess we move on to the next report. Councillor McLean.
Yeah, I don't know if we can start slashing up this project just to try and come up with a way forward. A few alternatives I see is just create a path in the simple area before you get to the trees. We can repave the section of road that's the worst there. Is there any interest in these kind of partial solutions? Just trying to come up with some kind of compromise.
Councillor Toth?
I think Councillor Lamb has a really good point. Like, I don't think there's going to be any partial, low cost, anything going on with this project. I think, it might have been able to have been done 10 years ago to some extent. But I don't think we're going to get away with a discount option on this project by the time we consider archaeology. And I think the only thing that we're going to be able to get away with is pouring some gravel out to make a pathway somewhere. Just my personal thoughts on the matter.
All right, I think we are just going to move on to the next item. Thank you, staff, for the work you put in and in response to what came forward from the community. Item 10.3, Sunshine Coast Arts Council Lease Agreement Renewal. And over to our corporate officer.
Thank you, Your Worship. This report is seeking Council's approval to renew the lease agreement with the Sunshine Coast Arts Council for district-owned land at 5714 Medusa Street. The district has, since 1998, been a party to a 5-year term lease with the Sunshine Coast Arts Council for the land at 5714 Medusa Street in one form or another. The building on the property is owned by the Arts Council and is known as the Sunshine Coast Arts Center. It is very clearly defined in the agreement that the building is to be used for the promotion, exhibition, and presentation of artistic and cultural and educational events for the public as a whole. The current lease was for a 5-year term that expired on December 31st, 2021. So we've brought the, and since that expiry, there is provision in the lease for it to continue on a month-to-month basis until a new lease is executed. But that said, we have prepared a new lease under the completely same terms and conditions as the previous one, just with the new term extension for a further 5 years, expiring on December 31st, 2026. So I've provided the recommendation there, recommending that council proceed with a new agreement and authorizing the mayor and corporate officer to sign it. That's my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Toth.
2 questions, and then I'm happy to move the recommendations as presented. 1998 being the start of the 5-year terms, I'm curious, and there may not be an answer to this, what did we do before that? Because I think that building's been there a lot longer than 1998. And then the other question was, is there a reason or a preference for only doing the 5-year terms? I just think they're probably not going anywhere, so.
Thank you. Unfortunately, I'm sorry, I don't have enough detailed background to bother. What I did in preparing this report was look back, and the very first time we entered in, it's possible that prior to that we had an informal arrangement. You know, that's what I'm thinking probably happened. It took a while till we actually formalized it to the point of an actual agreement. Second question again, sorry.
Just, is there a reason we're only doing a 5-year lease?
Sorry. Not really. I think that the main reason has possibly been to not tie the hands of future councils, would be the only reason. But nothing specific that I'm aware of.
All right. I guess either party can get out of the lease at any time. I did read that. So with 90 days or 6 months or whatever it was. So I'm happy to move recommendation 2, that a lease agreement be entered into with the Sunshine Coast Arts Council for district-owned land at 5714 Medusa Street for a 5-year term from January 1st, 2022 to December 31st, 2026 at a rent of $1 per year, and that the mayor and corporate officer be authorized to sign the agreement.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for the recommendation? Seconded. Any questions, comments? All those in favor? Thank you. Moving on to item 10.4, Airport Modification Agreement between Mervyn and George's Sale and Purchase and Term Renewal and Corporate Officer.
Thank you, Your Worship. This report is seeking Council's authorization to execute a assignment and modification agreement for the sale and purchase of Sechelt Airport Hangar Lot 2, which is between Richard Mervyn and Chris Jorgis, and to extend the term of the original lease agreement for 5 years per the one-time option to renew that is in the agreement. A little bit of background here. This is the last of the template airport leases that were all signed at the same time in 2000 that council is aware of because we've brought several forward already. This one we did deal with at the same time. We sent it out with the others to get written requests for the option for the leasee to exercise their option to renew. So that was done. But we understood there was a private sale going on through that time. So while we were waiting for that documentation. So everything is together now, and it's being brought forward to you. It's essentially a housekeeping matter. This was a private sale between the parties noted here, and the district's piece is to modify the agreement to formalize who the parties are, and to also implement the one-time only option to renew the lease. And the proposed modification agreement is attached for your review. That's my report.
Thank you. Any questions by council? There is a recommendation on page 218. Would someone like to move the recommendation? Councillor McLean.
All right, I'll move recommendation 2 that the airport assignment and modification agreement transferring ownership of Seashell Airport Hangar Lot 2 from Richard Mervyn to Chris Georges and extending the term of the original lease from 5 years from December 31st, 2019 to December 31st, 2024 be approved as presented, and that the mayor and corporate officer be authorized to execute the agreement.
And that's seconded. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Thank you very much. Moving on to item 10.5 on page 226. This is the Engineering Operations Division Capital Project Updates for the council meeting of January 19th. Council, any questions or comments? Councillor McLean? Sorry, Councillor Toth?
Just a real quick one on page 227, the active transportation network improvements. You may have answered this previously, Director Dillon, and I apologize, I don't remember. Is this, I believe this is primarily the grant that we got for Mason Road, Reeve Road, et cetera. But is the Reef Road bike path also rolled into this particular project title?
Through your worship, no, this is only for the grant that we were approved last year, which is up Mason Road, up Croston Trail, and then back towards West Seashell. The other portions that are along Reef Road, those have been designed with a different consultant.
And so just to follow up to that, so we're literally waiting for the Cook Creek Culvert project to move forward before we can do essentially anything on that project?
I believe, I guess our Director of Municipal Construction is along with us, but we can go ahead and tender certain portions of that construction. The design is ready to go for the bike lanes on Reef Road. I think for that piece along Cook Creek Culvert, yes, we would have to install that before we can complete that portion of it. But you know, I think the projects can be staged in such a way that some work can be done while we wait for the culvert to be done. So,
okay, thank you. It'd be nice to get some sidewalks around one of our elementary schools.
Well, by the end of this construction season, I think that's the intent. We'll have these projects underway. So we've started with the design process on the big one, and the other one is getting very close to being tendered for construction.
Thank you. I wanted to address the Wharf Avenue sidewalk improvements. So first of all, we had a meeting at the regional district with our MLA, and what he indicated was that what they're seeing on the front lines in the government is 3 times the absentee rate that they've seen in previous years. So, you know, this is due to COVID, obviously. So they are finding that projects and things are taking more time to get through the various ministries. But in this case, given staff are looking to get this moving, I'm wondering if there's some advocacy we can do at the political level to see if we can give a nudge to get some work done here. And I think we'd be willing to take that on to see if we can get a hold of Ministry of Transportation and see if we can get a response on this so that we don't have this project held up. Councillor Toth.
Thank you. Yeah, following up with the Wharf Avenue, you know, we are looking for a permit from MOTI, but have they actually, have they signed off on the design? We're just waiting for an actual construction permit approval, works within their right-of-way, some sort of document. I guess the question is, are we able to risk manage around not having that permit in hand and starting the process or the project?
Yes, through your worship, we have looked at that as a potential opportunity. I guess the risk there is we would complete some works and the ministry could tell us to remove said works. So we looked at options where maybe a contractor could start at the south end of the project and keep working, and while those other permits are in process, and then maybe we, get to a certain point and they'll come in and we can complete our work. So we are working through those options. They've actively been considered, but I think with regards to next steps is I am planning on sending some correspondence to people that are perhaps further up the chain who could expedite us getting this, and any help could be of assistance. We're ready to go from our end. We have a low bid contractor who's ready to get on the project, and we would like to get this done. Absolutely.
Thank you. Councillor McLean.
Generally in the District of Sechelt, we like to avoid construction projects through the summer period in our downtown core. I recognize Trail Avenue had extenuating circumstances. So I'm wondering, is that something we should consider with Wharf Avenue? With these delays, is there potential to be doing construction during our peak tourism season?
Thank you for the question again, and through your worship. So we explicitly stated in the construction tender that contractors and bidders are to avoid the period between Victoria Day and Labor Day. So our intent, under an ideal timeline where the ministry is providing approvals in their normal time frame, the plan was to get started in February, March, and be done in April and wrap up in May and hit all the works completed by that Victoria Day long weekend target date. Now, if they don't come in and we're somehow delayed, then we will be looking at starting after Labor Day and trying to get done in the months of September, October, and wrapping up in November. But there was explicit instructions so that contractors can, tune their bidding appropriately based on availability to avoid that time of year.
Thank you so much for that response.
Mm-hmm. So maybe we'll work with the CAO and see what we can do as council on the political side to see if we can give this a nudge as well. And we'll work together with you on that. Thanks. Any other questions or comments about this report? All right, seeing none, let us move to councillor reports. We'll start with Councillor Kuster, Toth, Rowe, and McLean, and then Lamb. Councillor Kuster.
Seems like a very long time since we've had to do this. The one thing that sticks in my mind, I attended Southwest Regional Call with Minister Josie Osborne and Minister Murray Rankin for December in the absence of Mayor Seegers, who is away enjoying some well-deserved time off. And it was a great meeting. Unfortunately, there was so much interest in this topic that we kind of ran out of time and I didn't get to speak. So that was kind of a disappointment, but it was focused on Indigenous relations and reconciliation. And it was really great to hear how other municipalities are building relationships or trying to work with their neighbors. And I really enjoyed that and was glad to be part of that. So, and other than Christmas and doing some healing of myself, that's it for my report.
Thank you. It's nice to see you here with us and looking very well.
Thank you.
Now, everybody's moved around on my screen, so I don't remember who was next. Councillor Toth?
I'll go next, because I'll keep it short. Other than the public hearing earlier this evening, I don't think I've got anything District of Sechelt business related to report. Just looking at my calendar here, it's been fairly quiet. I did tune into the APC where they were discussing the operations center. Glad that is moving forward, rolling forward. yeah, 269 days until the election. One thing I did want to point out for anybody who might be watching or might know low-income seniors in our community, TELUS has started offering internet packages for seniors who receive the federal guaranteed income supplement. So the plan started only $10 a month. So it's a great opportunity to help get some of our seniors connected to friends and family who they may not have been able to connect with through COVID times. So other than that, I don't have anything to report this week. Thank you.
Thank you. Is Councillor Rowe next?
Mm-hmm. Yes, thanks. Nothing much to report. Just getting organized with Siobhan to start the next CIP granting cycle. And so we met today around that. And that's about it, other than the public hearing earlier tonight. And well, you know, there's always work. And I think we're probably up to seeing over 60,000 people since this all started when I counted this week. So the clinics are still busy. So get your booster, people.
Thank you. Councillor McLean.
Thank you. This week, I attended a Ferry Advisory Committee meeting, the first formal meeting in 2 years. So it's good to see that they're back. And we should be continuing these meetings twice a year from here on in. Notable this meeting was first time we've had a representative from Modi attend. Kirk Handuran, who is the executive director of the Marine branch of Modi, attended the meeting. So it's good to have the government side within that meeting and kind of hearing the concerns that we have about ferry service on the southern Sunshine Coast. I guess the big one that the community is looking for is the two-ship service. No real updates on that. BC Ferries is engaging in a capital planning process, but at the end of the day, from the time that it gets announced, it'll be 5 to 7 years by the time we see a boat on our route. So at the minimum, it's 5 to 7 years if it gets decided this year. But likely more than that for seeing two ships on our route. Few operational updates. BC Ferries will be releasing an app in the spring of this year. I have seen a preview of it. It is fairly functional. And the neat thing about that is the app development is actually feeding back into the main website. So that means that they're going to be making some updates to the website based on what they've learned from the app. So hopefully that will enable easier access to information for BC Ferries. You might recall that there was a rockfall at the Horseshoe Bay Ferry Terminal that has totally closed the parking lot, which I think some commuters use. They leave their cars in there and just leave it on the other side. So right now they're just using the surface parking lots and apparently they're getting by, but that should be closed for about another month. And then the really big news is that BC Ferries is facing cruise shortages due to absentees due to COVID. They're feeling this particularly in Departure Bay. So how this affects us is there's actually one boat a day that comes over to Departure Bay and serves two sailings for the Sunshine Coast, and ours goes over and serves one of theirs. So they do this little switcheroo, which enables the 5:30 sailing. What they're going to do is they're going to keep our boat on our route for the entire day, which will likely remove that 5:30 sailing and push it to a 6:30 sailing approximately. And then they're going to cut sailings from the Departure Bay route due to these cruise shortages. So this is likely a change that's going to take effect for about a month, they're predicting. I will be meeting with them, BC Ferries, tomorrow to discuss the specific impacts. But the cruise shortages due to Omicron has really had a large impact on BC Ferries. And we are going to lose out on that critical 5:30 sailing, which is going to affect a lot of commuters. That's all I got.
Thank you. Councillor Lamb.
I've got nothing to add to the conversation here tonight. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, so I've had my booster, Councillor Rowe. I'm done. So a few things have happened in the last while. I did mention, I think I mentioned that I was on the recruitment committee for the new CEO for Island Coastal Economic Trust. We had first round of interviews before Christmas, and then we had the second round of interviews after Christmas. And I believe that we're out putting an offer in at this point. So hopefully that will be in place soon. Talk to Your Local Government started up again. And we had Ed Hill as our moderator. He's never done it before, so it was we had a good time. We had a good conversation. I had a conversation with the new executive director for the Hospice Society. So the Hospice Society is looking at doing some future planning to, currently we have 2 beds for hospice. The proposal that had come out with Trellis was for 4 beds. They want to look at, given the population that we have and the age of the population we have, how many beds should we actually build over the next while? Because they recognize they're going to have to do a capital fundraising campaign. And if they look further to the future, they'll do it now, may not operate all the beds, you know, potentially if they do 8 beds, but only operate 4 at this point, they've still got the room for expansion down the road, because they also recognize they need some respite beds for the community. I have attended a number of budget sessions with the SDRD. I attended the first one, which was areas D, E, and F, and then A and B, and then the Sechelt Nation, and the town of Gibsons. So I've seen these slides a number of times. Attended the Downtown Business Association board meeting yesterday morning. They are looking at putting their calendar together. They're talking about a wine event. That was one of the ones that was really popular in the community for a while. So they're looking at potentially revitalizing that. We've had a couple of people, I guess, move to the coast who are representatives for some of the wineries. So there's a couple of other projects they're looking. They want to really get clear on what they are doing and what they are not doing. So they'll be working on that over the next while and making sure they communicate that. Sunshine Coast Homelessness Advisory Committee. There is work being done in the community to come up with numbers for how many people we have that are homeless and need supports. Some of the units on the Sunshine Coast have expiration dates. Basically, things are happening that some of them will be closed, redevelopment, those sorts of things. So there's been conversations happening between Vancouver Coastal Health, BC Housing, and members of the Sunshine Coast Homelessness Advisory Committee to come up with what the strategies would look like to provide accommodation for these people. The SDRD board met with our MLA yesterday. Yes, it was yesterday. Number of questions and concerns. One particularly that's showing up at the regional district is around stormwater management. So we all have seen the impacts of stormwater over the last little while, and there's a lot of work that we know needs to be done. It's Director McMahon's comment was there's a jurisdictional spaghetti that needs to be sorted out. Because that was a good one. Jurisdictional spaghetti that to look at this, because it's Ministry of Transportation, it's DFO, it's Flynn Ward, it's the SCRD, it's the town of Gibsons. So we need to get all these organizations together to find out, okay, first of all, who's responsible and how do we do the planning, the long range planning, because it's not just putting in another culvert. There's a lot more going on there. So our MLA indicated that he would go away and have a discussion to see how we could make that happen. One final comment, and I might be getting into Councillor Toth's report here, but next week, Monday, no, not next week, Monday, yes, next week, Monday, 24th, is the SDRD board round 2 budget. So we're looking at wrapping that next week. And I think that's all I've got. Councillor Toth, SDRD report.
I've actually got one comment and one question about your, well, I guess it's a question and then the comment. Anyways, the homelessness count that they're looking to do, are they looking at just a count, or are they looking to try and collect some demographic data while they're at it?
What they're doing with these facilities that are closing is they've actually gone and interviewed all the people because they need to find out what types of housing they need. Do they have mobility issues? Do they need supports, et cetera? So they've got a pretty good look at who's in the facilities now so that they can target where they would need to put them.
Okay, but they're only looking at the people that are currently
They're only
in
looking
facilities?
yes, right at this point.
Okay. Yeah, so my report, my SDRD report is attached. Happy to take any questions. I skipped the last couple meetings of the year because I was trying to figure out how to wrap them into this report, and I thought, new year, clean slate, new report. So I just cut my losses. Happy to take any questions, though. One thing I did want to touch on with the stormwater management stuff was that there is a SDRD AVICC resolution that's going to be coming forward around stormwater management. And then there's also another one that's going to be coming forward around short-term rental enforcement of regulations and fines, and how jurisdictions can perhaps try and collect some of these fines, or, you know, move them to property taxes, et cetera. There aren't enough tools in the toolbox. So yeah, happy to take any questions about the SDRD report.
Thank you. I wanted to just make a comment to the community. During the atmospheric river event that we had, I don't think it's common knowledge in the community that the 2 water pipes that come from the water treatment plant cross the ravine and leave from the airport going to Roberts Creek and down into Seashelt. They actually were undermined during that atmospheric river. The slope at the end of the runway collapsed, and we had to do some very quick work by staff. I think it was on a weekend even, where they had to go in and brace these water lines. We didn't know if they were going to collapse because there were joints there that were no longer being supported. So there's a lot of work that's being done behind the scenes that the community may not know about, and staff just step up and do it to make sure that things get handled. So I want to say kudos to the SDRD water team. They've kept us. They've been working over and above what's been required.
We've seen some pictures of them literally like hip deep in ditches working on repairing water lines that are underwater. And yeah, they've been doing it without complaint. So no, they were definitely the quiet heroes of the SDRD during the storm events.
All right, Mr. Dillon showed up. Did you want to talk about something as well?
No, I just want to acknowledge our staff as well, that the District of Seashell who helped with that particular response. It was the actions of my manager of municipal construction, Mr. Sanath Bandera, and some quick thinking that he diverted water to a different location. And had that not been done, the situation could have been a lot worse. So I like to think on the Sunshine Coast, all our governments collaborate, and when we need to, we work together to solve problems that affect all the residents. So I just want to acknowledge my staff for also working on the weekend and helping with that. Thank you.
Thank you. I was not aware of that. So thank you. I will mention that at the SDRD. All right. Next up is council correspondence. I'd look for a motion to receive the correspondence. Moved, seconded, all in favor? Thank you. And there are a couple of items here marked for action. First one is number 1, a letter from Catherine Leach, the Executive Director for Community Services. I believe that's her title. Executive Director, yes. Now, she's requested that we respond to her letter. It's actually it's quite extensive. Councillor Toth?
Just as a follow-up from something from the SDRD, the Policing and Public Safety Committee is no longer being hosted by the SDRD. I'm wondering if we have an idea on when we might hold the first alternative meeting, and perhaps this can be brought up or they can be invited.
That's a good point. I was sent just before Christmas a proposal for how they could be set up, because I'd offered to support the RCMP in getting that started. So I need to get back to them and get that work happening so that we can schedule the first meeting. That's a very good idea. Right.
I could just jump in. Yeah.
Yep. That's insane.
So I do note that the District of Sechelt put out an employment opportunity for the RCMP Community Safety Coordinator. I recognize in here it mentions stuff like Speed Watch and other program areas. I think this kind of work should be near the top of the list. And that's one of the advantages of how this one-year contract position was structured, is that it is at the direction of the District of Sechelt and the RCMP. So we can kind of provide that strategic direction that they should be working on setting something up like a street team, as community services suggests. So I think that will add a little bit of capacity once we get that hired. So I'm really looking forward to bringing that person onto the team in the next few months.
Thank you. So perhaps we could refer this to the RCMP, and recognizing that that position is being advertised right now. All right, next item on here for action is the last one. Tourism Advisory Committee invitation. So Sunshine Coast Tourism is requesting that we appoint someone to join their South Coast Tourism Advisory Committee. Councillor Toth.
Sounds interesting. Director Ties jumped me at the SDRD, so I'm happy to offer myself up as tribute for this one.
All right, so we need a recommendation to appoint Councillor Toth as the representative for the South Coast Tourism Advisory Committee on behalf of the District of Sechelt.
So moved.
Is there a seconder for the recommendation? Seconded. All those in favor? Thank you. All right, are there any others on this list that you'd like to address? Councillor Toth.
Well, I don't know that I'd like to address it necessarily because it's 80 pages long, but number 2 is actually listed for action, information and or action. I'm not going to lie, I didn't read it because it was 80 pages long, but I look forward to reading it after this meeting.
Okay, I did read this, but it's been a little while since I went through this whole, because it came to me another way as well.
Given that most of our community associations abut forest areas, timber supply regions, I'm just wondering as a starting point if we should forward this to all of our community associations.
We could. That would be, yeah, we could refer it to them.
I'll make that motion that this is referred to the community associations.
Is there a seconder for the recommendation? Seconded? All right. All those in favor? Thank you. Any other items of correspondence? Councillor McLean.
Just within that piece, I do note that there is an information session on January 23rd, which requires RSVP. So if you do want to find out more, that would be a good session. And the last one I went to that was on a similar topic was very interesting. So I'd encourage anyone to is interested to check that out. And I may as well read the email. It's Engage Sunshine Coast Forest District at gov.bc.ca. Send an email there and you can RSVP for the meeting.
Thank you. Any other correspondence you'd like to address? Seeing none, I would look to staff. Are there any emergency items?
No emergency items, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. I'd look for a motion to adjourn.